I don't know. This one might be guilty. Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney is a game where you play as the rookie defense attorney, Phoenix Wright, where you and the prosecution verbally beat the snot out of each other just to figure out what the hell is going on, as you take on 5 of the most absurd and outrageous murder cases the world has ever seen. Shu Takumi, the game's director, and his small team crafted a game like no other. It's dressed in bountiful charm, bursting with iconic moments, and stocked with a colorful cast of characters to fall in love with. And to think this masterpiece was created for the GBA by 7 people in 10 months. To the modern gamer, that is madness. Most titles take years to develop and they still come out half-baked. Looking at you, Skull and Bones. But what is the secret? How does a small team with such heavy limitations create an experience that continues to surpass many newer titles 20 years on? Well, sit down and get ready, folks, for the court.
Are you the judge of this court hearing, or am I?
Oh, sorry, Your Honor, I just... Never mind.
Good. Court is now in session.
Before we continue, I'm only covering the first game, not its sequels or spin-offs or even the story itself. I'm just analysing the first game's design, though there may be some visual spoilers for parts of the story. We good? Excellent. Now, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is a visual novel, a genre of game that excels at creating immersive interactable experiences on a limited budget. Because, well, if you think about it, the genre is just a handful of backgrounds, sprites, and some text boxes. However, this minimalistic design does produce a few challenges. For instance, how do you make a visual novel visually interesting? Especially when you're tight on budget, manpower, and time. Some games like Doki Doki Literature Club just cut their losses and settle for what is necessary, relying mostly on static backgrounds and a limited selection of key poses for their cast of insane, deranged women, which makes the game mostly visually static, an unfortunate downside we see in the genre. Creating interesting animations for characters, backgrounds, and mechanics is quite expensive, which means the developers either need to accept the staticness of the game, or they need to get creative when addressing these limitations. Fortunately, Shu Takumi and his team were very creative, because Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, addresses this common pitfall by using something known as limited animation, which, if you don't know, is a technique where animators reuse frames for character animations. Breathing, blinking, walking are all common examples of this technique at work. This limited animation in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney helps breathe life into the static sprites of the cast. Whether it's Larry sweating, Gumshoe's head scratch, or the caretaker's swaying. Something's not right about that guy. These small animations keep the game visually interesting whilst complementing the over-the-top tone the game creates. Because the characters of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney are anything but subtle.
Objection! I am not over the top. If you actually paid attention, you would know I'm a very sophisticated individual, one who is highly educated and diligent in his work, unlike you, who sits around like...
Do you see my point yet? Body language is a tool that designers possess that help them distinguish characters from each other. If characters don't move, they can at times feel similar to other characters despite not looking anything alike. Because, you know, they don't move, they're PNGs on the screen. And this is where Phoenix Wright gets it right. These characters are written to be larger-than-life caricatures that give the game its charm. And the key poses and expressions of each character is clearly distinct from one another, which goes a long way to make each character stand out from one another. Edgeworth is composed, Gumshoe is adorable, and Jake Marshall is the best character in the entire series. Don't at me. These small bits of limited animation aid Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney in solving the problem of making a visual novel visually interesting, for they help breathe life into this very static game genre. The characters, the setting, and the mysteries are all heightened and leave a greater impression on the player because of these little additions. When you boil it down to a basic generalization, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is a point-and-click puzzle game, or adventure game, one of the two, where you go around collecting evidence and clicking on text boxes to solve the mystery. But it's how the gameplay has been designed that's the brilliant part, because it complements the game's theme/aesthetics beautifully despite the limitations. The problem with visual novels is that they are limited in how expansive the gameplay can be, especially when a development team is tight on resources. Deep combat mechanics and complex physics-based interactions are just not possible. This, at times, can lead designers to create gameplay that clashes or doesn't quite fit with the game's theme/aesthetics. For example, and I know what I'm about to say is completely left field, but I promise you it makes sense in my mind. Also, I don't own this game. I just happen to be a big fan of Markiplier, okay? We understand that? Good. So, in Honey Pop...
Hold it!
Honey Pop is not relevant to this topic whatsoever. Your Honor, this man is clearly just horny.
In this game, the appeal is derived from being able to date and sleep with many attractive anime women, whether they be a human, an alien, or a god. The conflict is found in how Honey Pop plays, because it doesn't actually try to capture the experience of dating through gameplay, which is probably a good thing, but what I'm trying to get at is that the majority of the game's gameplay is actually found in a Candy Crush minigame, which, I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't seem to complement the themes/aesthetics the game is trying to create. There is a clear disconnect between the two. This is where I must commend Shitakumi and his team for how they crafted the gameplay of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, because each mechanic works to encourage players to engage with their critical thinking. As Shitakumi said himself, to create a game where the player is rewarded for their deductions. I first came up with a game style that was about exposing the lies of the culprit. So, then I had to think about professions that would need to expose lies, and I finally arrived at a defense attorney. In Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, you're not just simply given a puzzle to solve right then and there. The player must go out and investigate the crime and use the evidence to find the contradictions, to expose the lies of the culprit. At every stage in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney's gameplay loop, whether it be the investigations, the trials, or the cross-examinations, the designers have constructed the gameplay to integrate the themes and the experience of exposing lies, because as a player, you feel like you're actually investigating and putting the pieces together to solve the mystery. It's satisfying but challenging, which rewards players for good deductions and observations. The visual novel genre is best used to tell interactable experiences, stories with rich connections between its characters and the narrative the game is attempting to weave. This is why the first-person camera model is used almost universally, because it's the perspective that creates the strongest amount of immersion for the player. It also doesn't hurt that it's one of the easiest camera models to implement into a game, and we see this in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. You investigate areas, talk to witnesses, and listen to the judge through this perspective. The game is centered around the first-person camera model, and if this is where Shitakumi and his team had left the gameography for Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the game's design wouldn't have suffered greatly from it. But do you remember the question I asked earlier? How do you make a visual novel visually interesting? Well, the creative manipulation of the camera, the player's perspective, is another way to solve that issue. We see in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the designers employ a handful of camera movements that they use as tools in certain circumstances. Panning motions to capture the scale of a location, camera shakes to emphasize sections of dialogue. All these techniques may seem extremely simple on paper, and that's because they are. That's the point I'm trying to make. These little additions to how the camera functions takes Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney to the next level. These tools are so very simple, yet so very effective at making this game stand out even 20 years on.
Objection!
You've brought up this point twice already. Tell me, are you sure you're not running out of material for these videos?
What was that for? I didn't deserve that.
Well, you are bringing up cameras again.
Are you on his team or mine? I know I sound like a broken record player by bringing up gamatography again for the third time in these essays, but it's so important for designers to understand how even the simplest of things can greatly impact how an experience is shaped. Because gamatography is a crucial part of game design. It's how the players see and interact with the experiences that the designers are shaping. And it's the job of a game designer to design experiences for players, using all the tools they have at their disposal to create it. So, to close it off, how did they do it? What makes the design of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney such a work of art? Although Shu Takumi and his team were going up against some serious limitations in hardware, manpower, and time, the team used those limitations to their advantage, allowing them to focus on creating an amazing experience without the distractions of adding unnecessary features. The sprites of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney come to life with limited animation, creating a visually interesting cast of characters that many have fallen in love with. The gameplay has been carefully constructed to promote the game's key themes / aesthetics, by integrating its puzzles throughout each section instead of relying on a minigame to progress forward. And the manipulation of the first-person camera heightens moments of great emotion and emphasizes key parts of the dialogue. These simple additions taking the player's perspective to a new level. It's often said that creativity is found within constraints, and Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney has found its magic in its simplicity. The limitations the dev team faced brought out the most of them, which allowed them to create a game that became the beginning of not only a trilogy, but a franchise of games and spin-offs. Shu Takumi and his team fought against the odds to come out on top, and I don't know about you folks, but that sounds quite familiar to a certain Ace Attorney we all know and love.
But not you, right?
Of course, it's not me, Your Honor. I'm not even an attorney.
No, he's just stupid.
Oh, come on. Just let me be. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also a big thanks goes out to PJ and my sister for lending their voices for this video. Anyways, take care and have a good rest of your day.